The initial 53-man roster has been set. Now, I wouldn't expect for this to be an absolute lock going into week 1 versus Tampa. Certainly, there are going to be a few more signings with some corresponding cuts to follow, maybe a couple of trades. Reportedly, teams have inquired with the Vikings on Jalen Reagor, so we'll see what happens. But for now, the initial 53-man roster, we're going to react to that. And here's how this is going to work. We're going to go over each position group, the players that made it, surprise cuts, if any, and if there's still work to be done. We'll start on offense, quarterback. Typically, they roll with 2 players, but this time they're going with 3. Kirk Cousins, Nick Mullins, and Jaren Hall. Obviously, Jaren Hall was going to make the team. There was no doubt about that. The question was, do you trust him enough to be your backup? And with Nick Mullins remaining on the team, clearly they're saying we don't want to put the pressure on him if he has to go in. We want to focus solely on his development. Now, in 2024, we'll see what happens. But for now, Nick Mullins will be the backup. Jaren Hall, just study, look good in practice, and you're good. As far as is there any work that still needs to be done? No, this is lock solid. This is as good as it gets for the Vikings quarterback situation. Up next, running back. Typically, they roll with, it looks like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4 out of the last 7 years, they have had 4 running backs, including last year, 2022. This time they have just 3. Alexander Madison, Ty Chandler, Kene, and Wangu. Chandler's going to be your RB2. Madison, your RB1. Surprise cuts. Not for me, but I can imagine for Vikings Nation. Dwayne McBride, rookie out of UAB. I said this, and I swear, folks, people think I'm just negative all the time, and that's not the case. I just call it like I see it, the good and the bad. When Dwayne McBride got drafted with their last pick, I said, you know what? As a running back in today's league, you can't be one-dimensional. You have to be multifaceted. And for McBride, he's a non-factor in the passing game, at least he was in college, and what he's good at, running with the football, he struggles with ball security, fumbling the football. So him getting cut is not a shocker to me. As far as work that still needs to be done, there is, because Kene and Wangu, is he going to be healthy going into the season? You need to add at least another insurance policy to worst case if Madison and Ty Chandler, or at least Madison, if he gets hurt, Ty Chandler, he's your new RB1. You need someone to back up him. I would say you need to add at least one more running back. Fullback, 1, CJ Ham. That was obvious. Receivers, they got 6. Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, Brandon Powell, and Jalen Reagor. We'll see if Reagor is on this team going into the regular season. Maybe he gets traded in the next day or two. We'll see. Surprise cuts, I'm going to go with Tristan Jackson. I believe he deserves an opportunity. I thought he deserved an opportunity for this team. Certainly deserves to be in the league. I think he is more than just a practice squad player. Hopefully he gets picked up by somebody else. Had he made the team, you're talking about, okay, is he going to make it above depth chart wise Jalen Naylor for wide receiver 4? But I wish him all the best. He deserves an opportunity. Tight ends, they got 4 dudes. Typically speaking, the Vikings, they roll with 3. Their 4 tight ends, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt, and Nick Muse. No surprise cuts. Ben Sims, Colin Thompson. I'm good on that. I would say I'm a little bit shocked there going with 4. TJ Hawkinson, obviously, he's your tight end 1. Josh Oliver was their first free agent signing, so you know they're not going to cut him. Johnny Munt is very effective. Johnny Munt and Nick Muse are both assets in the passing game. But I would say, well, you know what? You have TJ Hawkinson. You also have Johnny Munt, Josh Oliver. Many make the argument that in Baltimore, when he was involved in the passing game beyond just blocking, that he can make plays. So, okay, fine. But they're going to roll with 4 tight ends. It's a little bit of a head scratcher, but really not that big of a deal. The offensive line, boy, oh boy, they've got 8 players. They typically go anywhere between 9 and 10 guys. So they're going with 8 initially anyway. Christian Darrisaw, Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, Ed Ingram, and Brian O'Neill. That's your starting unit. After that, your 3 reserves are Austin Schlottman, Blake Brandel, and Oli Udoh. As far as any surprise cuts, no, they traded Vidarian Lowe. There are no surprise cuts because the offensive line stinks. It doesn't, and that includes at least 2 guys on the starting unit, your 2 guards. Is there still work to be? In fact, going back to tight ends, is there still work to be done? No, absolutely not. If anything, you need to cut Nick Muse if you want to make another roster spot for somebody else. But compared to other positions we'll get into later, maybe as far as the totem pole, the second or third guy I would look at, but nothing to work on with the tight ends. Offensive line, is there anything to work on? Yeah. Are you kidding me? That offensive line stinks. And it's crazy because Kirk Cousins was the most hit quarterback in the league last year. We heard the soundbite on the docuseries Quarterback where he said at one point, I'm sick of getting hit every play. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah looked at that performance of the O-line last year and said, we're good. Imagine getting up in the morning and you go downstairs to your kitchen and you make a pot of coffee, and in the middle of making that coffee, you look over towards your sink and maybe there's a piece of fruit or whatever that you didn't clean up the night before, and you see a whole colony of ants going to town. You see those ants and you go, oh man, that's crazy. And you go about your business as if nothing happened. That's Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and the Minnesota Vikings offensive line. It's crazy. You could have had Isaac Seumalo in free agency. He ended up going to Pittsburgh. He has like a $3.6 million cap. That's nothing. And you also could have signed, you still could sign Dalton Reisner. That would have made such a huge difference if you would have added those 2 players. Combined, they don't cost that damn much, but they're going to roll with the same interior. And as far as depth is concerned, the whole offensive line needs work outside of the starting tackles. And now we're going to go to defense. On the defensive line, interior anyway, 5 players: Dean Lowry, Harrison Phillips, Khyiris Tonga, Jonathan Bullard, and Jaquelin Roy. Surprise cuts, if you want to say Ross Blacklock, fine. I was a huge fan of him coming out of TCU, and when he got drafted by the Texans, just didn't live up to the expectations. He came over to Minnesota, and I just said, whatever you can get from him, fine. But the fact that he played well into the 3rd preseason game said a lot. That normally a player with the, I guess you could say experience, but it's not like he's been good at all, but someone that's been in the league at least a decent amount of time, for someone to play that well into the 3rd preseason game, it just said, okay, unless you make a couple of splash plays, you're not going to make it. Work to be done, a heck of a lot. Harrison Phillips is there. He's decent. Khyiris Tonga, we'll see. He intrigues me. I think I saw reports that it's expected for him to be the nose tackle. Dean Lowry, I expect nothing out of him. Anything from him is a bonus. But yeah, it'd be nice if you could add a player, but this deep into, before the season starts anyway, this deep into free agency, I mean, you're looking at scraps at this point. So I think this is as good as it's going to get. Outside linebackers, 5 players: Marcus Davenport, Daniil Hunter, DJ Wonnum made it, Patrick Jones II, and Andre Carter II. Surprise cuts. Luigi Villain, I thought he was solid in preseason. Benton Whitley, I thought in that last game did a heck of a job, but he didn't make it. This is the unfortunate part of making a roster. You could do everything possible. You could do everything right. And it still, unfortunately, might not be enough. It may be too many chefs in the kitchen at your position group. Although Luigi Villain, you could argue that he should have made it over DJ Wonnum. Andre Carter II, they're keeping him off of potential. I think he is extremely raw still after training camp and the preseason. We'll see what happens with him. Work to be done. Not really. Well, it really just depends on Marcus Davenport. He had, half a sack last season with New Orleans, so he needs to be light years better. But as long as he can improve, you have two quality starting edge rushers with him and Danielle Hunter. Patrick Jones II coming off the bench. DJ Wonnum is okay. I think you're fine. Inside linebackers, 4 players. Jordan Hicks, Brian Asamoah, Troy Dye, Ivan Pace Jr. I think this is rock solid right here. These were your 4 best guys. No surprise cuts. Work to be done? No. I have nothing bad to say about this. Ivan Pace Jr., the only thing, I'm going to be looking forward to that initial depth chart, or the initial depth chart. They already had one. The next depth chart as far as where is Ivan Pace Jr. going to be? Is he going to be starting alongside Jordan Hicks? Will he be? There's no way they're going to bench Hicks at all to have Brian Asamoah and Ivan Pace Jr. starting. Or is Pace Jr. going to be the first man up? We'll see. Cornerbacks, 5 players. I feel like that's a little light. Last year they had 6 corners. All right, so they're one off from what they typically do, at least last year anyway. The 5 cornerbacks, Byron Murphy Jr., Caleb Evans, Andrew Booth Jr., and Mekhi Blackman and Najee Thompson. Surprise cuts, I'm going to go with Jawan Williams. He was getting reps with the first team defense. He's a big body corner. I thought Brian Flores liked him a lot. I am shocked that he is gone. So this would mean that Byron Murphy, in the event that he's playing in the slot, after a Caleb Evans, Mekhi Blackman would be the 3rd cornerback out there. All right, I'll take it. He was your 2nd pick in this draft. As far as work that needs to be done, something about 5 corners just doesn't sit well with me. I think you need to add at least one more guy as an insurance policy, maybe add him to special teams. But just having 5 corners, I'm not good with that. Safeties, boy, they got 6 players. That is wild. Last year, they had 4 safeties, so they bumped it up by 2. The players that made it, Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, Lewis Seen, Jay Ward, Theo Jackson. Now, you can make the argument that, all right, 5 safeties, that would be a little bit too much, but I could understand. 6 safeties, and I'm going to tell you why they have 6 safeties. Lewis Seen. Going into year 2 of the Lewis Seen era, so far, his peak has been making the team. That's it. Had he not been selected in the first round, he would have been cut. He has shown nothing. The other 5 safeties at least have shown promise. They have made flashes. Obviously, Hitman and Cam Bynum, they're going to be the starters. Josh Metellus, he's going to be the Swiss Army knife. Jay Ward, in 1 preseason, has looked better than Lewis Seen in 2. Even Theo Jackson has made some plays. Lewis Seen has, and you know, I feel like there's this aura with him. We have to coddle Lewis Seen. Oh, don't you dare to. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. I have seen nothing from this guy. And he's not going to get any PT in year 2 with the players ahead of him. So I guess we'll wait for year 3. First round pick. Maybe we'll get something then. That's crazy. And then your specialists are Andrew DePaula, Greg Joseph, and Ryan Wright. I'm surprised that they just cut Pud Leslie. He didn't even play in the preseason at all. Didn't even make it a real competition. He was just there in training camp. But Greg Joseph, he's going to be the kicker. Your thoughts on the initial 53-man roster? There are still going to be quite a few moves that are going to happen over the next couple of days. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below.